Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really serious charge, one that can flip a family's world completely upside down in a heartbeat. We're talking about California Penal Code 29800, which most people know as the felon with a firearm law.
The material we're digging into today kicks off with this really powerful line, and it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It captures that instant chaos and confusion that families go through when a loved one gets arrested for something like this. It's just a moment packed with questions and incredibly high stakes.
All right, so let's jump right in. In this first section, we're going to decode what this law actually says and get to the bottom of why the state takes it so seriously.
So at its heart, the law seems pretty simple, right? It's all about keeping guns away from people the state has flagged as prohibited, usually folks with a prior felony. But here's where it gets tricky. The key words to pay attention to aren't just own, but also possession, custody, or control. And that's a much wider net.
Now, this is super important to get. This isn't one of those wobbler offenses that a prosecutor could maybe charge as a misdemeanor. No, the law is crystal clear. This is a felony, straight out of the gate. That right there tells you just how serious this is.
And yeah, the stakes are incredibly high. See, for felonies like this one, California has this thing called a default felony triad. What that means for you is that a conviction could land someone in prison for 16 months, 2 years, or even up to 3 years. It all really depends on the specifics of the case.
Okay, let's get into what might be the single most important word in these entire cases: possession. And trust me, it is not as simple as it sounds, not by a long shot.
So, let me ask you, what does possession actually mean? I mean, most of us think, okay, I'm holding it, it's in my pocket, but that's not how the law sees it. The legal definition is way broader. This right here breaks down the two big ideas prosecutors work with. First, you've got actual possession. That's the easy one, the one we all get. The gun is literally on you. But then there's constructive possession. And this, my friends, is where things get really messy. It means the gun was just in a place you could get to and had control over, even if you never laid a finger on it.
And this is exactly why the excuse, "Hey, I wasn't holding it," just doesn't cut it a lot of the time. Think about it. A gun under the car seat you're driving? In a drawer in a bedroom you sleep in? A prosecutor can and will argue that's constructive possession. This one idea is often the main battlefield where these cases are fought.
Okay, so now that we've got a handle on the charge itself, let's walk through what happens right after. The flashing lights are gone, the arrest has been made. What's next? What do those first few hours and days actually look like?
Well, according to our source material, these arrests can pop up from all sorts of situations. It might start with something as simple as a traffic stop that just goes sideways, or it could be a probation check, a domestic violence call, or even a big, planned search warrant. It's a really wide net.
So once someone's in custody, a very specific process kicks in. Step 1 is booking. Fingerprints, photos, background checks. Then the formal charges get logged. And finally, based on those charges in the record, a bail amount is set. It's a very clear, step-by-step thing. And to make this a little more real, our source gives a specific example. Let's say an arrest happens in Placer County, California. The booking would probably happen at one of 2 main jails there. And right away, that becomes the #1 thing you need to know. Where is my loved one?
Now, bail for a felony can be insanely expensive. We're talking amounts that most families just don't have sitting around in cash. And that's where the whole bail bond system comes into play. You work with a bail agent, and they post a guarantee for a fraction of the cost so your person can get released.
And it's good to remember why we even have bail, right? The whole point is really twofold. 1, make sure the person actually comes back for their court dates. And 2, protect the public while the case is sorted out. That's the theory anyway. All right, let's pivot. The person's out on bail. Now the real fight begins, defending the charge. What's really interesting here is that these cases are often way more defendable than you think. It all boils down to what the prosecution can actually prove.
And look, this isn't about some sneaky loophole in the law. It's about something fundamental. The burden of proof is 100% on the prosecution. They have to prove every single piece of their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And with a charge like this, that can be a really high bar to clear.
So here's a huge question for the defense. Did the person even know the gun was there? It's not enough for the prosecutor to say, "Hey, there was a gun in the car." They have to prove the person knew about it. So what if you borrowed your buddy's car and had no idea he left a gun in the glove box? That's a huge point to argue.
And this brings us right back to that tricky idea of constructive possession.
Did they actually have control over it? Let's say the gun is in a locked safe in the house, but your guy doesn't have the key or the combo. Well, it's pretty hard to argue he had control over it then, isn't it?
And then there's another massive angle. The search itself. Was it legal? If the cops found that gun by violating someone's constitutional rights, like searching a car without probable cause, then the gun itself, the key piece of evidence, might get thrown right out of court. Case over.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. Let's boil everything we've talked about down to the absolute critical first steps. What should a family do right now in those first chaotic 24 hours?
This is it. This is your game plan if you're ever in this nightmare scenario. First things first, find out exactly where they're being held. Number 2, and this is a big one, do not talk about the case on the jail phones. Those calls are recorded. 3, get the exact bail amount. 4, call a defense attorney, like yesterday. And finally, if they get released, they have to follow every single condition to the letter. Getting these first moves right is just everything.
So we'll leave you with this one last thought to chew on. In a system that's supposed to be all about proof, the biggest question isn't what are they accused of? The real question is, what can the prosecution actually prove? Because in the end, it's not the accusation that matters, it's the evidence.